while going through this proposal process. We'll talk with you about the review process and when you can expect to hear back from us, a little bit about our registration policies, and then we're going to leave some time at the end of today's webinar for your questions. And we'll also stop periodically throughout the webinar to answer questions as they come in. And as James said, and for those of you who may have joined us a little late, if you do have a question, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a question box. You can just type it in there, and we will get to those questions, as many of them as we can during our hour today. And before we kick things off, we wanted to start with a short poll. So James, let's go ahead and launch our poll. We're interested to know when the last time you attended a Guild conference. Have you ever attended a conference? Perhaps maybe you attended one recently, or maybe even it's 5 years or more out. So go ahead and just take a minute to answer that quick poll. And let's go ahead and see the results, James. Great. Wow. So we have a lot of newcomers. That's great. We'll have some good information to share with you all. Some folks that have been attending more recently. I will note that the last time we were in Philadelphia was in 2008, and the conference program has really evolved quite a bit since then. And so for those of you who are returning to the conference after many years, hopefully you'll see that today in today's presentation. We're very interested in getting all of you involved as we continue to grow and expand the conference program. So James, let's talk a little bit about who people can expect to see at the conference, and if they're thinking about designing proposals for the conference, who their audience might be.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. So as you can see, we have quite a few folks from quite a few organizations who come out to join us at our national conference. Of these organizations that join us, most of them are community arts schools or schools of the arts and cultural centers, youth theaters and orchestras, and divisions of performing arts companies, universities and colleges, museums and government agencies, and a few other organizations. Just to remind you that this is a pretty diverse and dynamic community of thought leaders. And Heather, if you can give us a quick program overview, be great.
Sure, great. And I just wanted to add, to the participants, we are mostly, the conference does mostly attract executive directors, senior staff, primarily program staff, education directors, as well as trustees. And more recently, we've been able to engage some teaching artists through our teaching artist development track, although that is not usually the primary audience. We'll get into this a little bit more, but we're also encouraging you to bring your partners. If you're partnering with researchers or social service agencies or public schools, often those partners are key to the conference program and certainly part of our collective work in community arts education. So they are often also part of the conference program. So a little bit about what you can expect during the conference. The conference this year will be November 11th through the 14th in Philadelphia. The 11th is a Wednesday, and that is a full day of pre-conference institutes. These are really deep dive opportunities to explore a topic or an issue fully with a community of peers. Some of those topics in the past have been looking at outcome-based evaluation, fundraising, marketing. We've had working group sessions on creative aging, creative youth development. So again, these are topics that we've heard back from the field as really poignant and topics that people want to kind of really come together and do some deep learning on for that full day. We usually plan around 3 or 4 of those pre-conference institutes. We also have a series of plenaries throughout the conference. These are all conference events where all of the delegates come together to hear a keynote speaker or a panel discussing a key topic. We have an opening plenary on Thursday, a morning plenary on Friday, and then we have an awards luncheon on Saturday afternoon. And during all of those plenaries, we also have opportunities for students in the local area to perform and share their work. The bulk of the conference is really made up of breakout sessions. These, we have about 50 or more of these throughout the 3 days of the main conference, the 12th through the 14th. And I'll just quickly go through this list. Workshops, these are really hands-on opportunities for folks to learn about a particular topic, roll up their sleeves, understand how they might take some of this learning back home, or even do some work on site. We have lectures. I would say these are lively lectures where thought leaders and experts in the field share information on best practices and exemplary work happening nationally. We have opportunities also for program showcases. So we recognize that we have people and organizations around the country doing really exemplary work, and these showcases are really experiential opportunities for organizations and programs to demonstrate what they're doing and for a chance for delegates to experience what is happening in your programs. This is often an opportunity to engage some of the young people or older adults in your program as well. We'll get into some more detail about our roundtables, but these are networking opportunities that happen throughout the conference that enable our delegates to come together, to have conversations, share information and advice with peers that are working either in similar disciplines, that are working in organizations that are similar to their own, or even working in similar programs. So perhaps folks that are working in juvenile justice or partnerships with public schools. So we have a huge diversity of delegates that attend from different organizations, disciplines, et cetera, and there's some wonderful cross-pollination of ideas that happens there, but we also recognize that people want to get together with peers that are doing similar work, and so that's what our roundtables enable us to do. And then we also have what we call working meetings. Delegates, we have folks that are coming together that want to learn from experts, but we also recognize that the conference is an opportunity for peers across the country to get together with each other and with thought leaders and expert practitioners to get some work done, to do some joint thinking about how to advance our work around particular issues. To give you an example, we have, over the past couple of years, developed a teaching artist development track that has been facilitated by Eric Booth, who's a phenomenal arts education expert and trainer, and that working group track has really been an opportunity for employing organizations, administrators, and teaching artists to come together in dialogue around key issues, looking at the professionalization of teaching artistry, how we really define the skills and aptitudes that a teaching artist needs to do their work the best way, to work in communities, and how we really develop teaching artistry as a field. And they have worked over the course of those days to develop and chart a plan for action around some key projects. Last year we had the opportunity to present on the development of how those projects developed from the year prior to over the course of 12 months, and get even more delegates together around those working groups and advance those projects further. So this is a sort of a new format for the Guild, but something that has gained a lot of traction over the past couple of years, and we're really interested in exploring other opportunities for that. James, let's talk a little bit about some of the networking opportunities also that exist within the conference.
Sure. So when we think about the networking events, I'd like you to think of the Guild as a giant umbrella. And under that umbrella lives a cross-pollination of ideas and activities that are happening inside and outside of the arts ed field, really working to build bridges that connect this learning community. We also recognize that people want opportunities to find their tribe and work with people of similar program types, disciplines, and organizational types. So we have our interest group meetings that happen, and those will be based on discipline. Sometimes they may be based on a topic that has come up through our members forum, We also have our regional chapter meetings or regional ambassador meetings where people will meet based on geographic location. And we have our next level luncheons. Sometimes these are programmed or curated based on some of the sessions that are proposed. They may not work as well as a larger session, a breakout session, but they may work as a next level luncheon. And during those sessions, they're not so much presentation as much as they are a chance for you to get together with some of your colleagues and talk about best strategies around ideas like marketing, student recruitment, board development, fundraising, program evaluations, and recently we've added extending arts learning opportunities online. We also do our office hours consultations, and those are a chance for you to meet with industry leaders such as yourselves and really get that 10 to 15 minute one-on-one time. Maybe it's you and 2 or 3 of your colleagues to sit down during the conference, and maybe you're talking about things or ideas that were presented, but also to pose some questions that have been burning that you really want some expert feedback on. We also do our site visits, and these have evolved into sort of off-site sessions in which, of course, will highlight the program that has volunteered to be a site visit, but we also like to dig into some of those topics that have come up during our planning meetings throughout the conference programming sessions. And then we have our student showcases, one of my favorite parts personally. During our plenaries and during our luncheon, we usually start off with a student performance or two, and there may be a few pop-up performances that happen. Don't want to give away all of our secrets, but those are a lot of fun, and we also are looking for usually local organizations to bring their young people out and perform and sort of show off that local talent. And so as we move on, thinking about topics that are presented during our conference, we did several planning meetings this year, mostly regional since we're going to be on the East Coast and in Philly. We did one in New York City, one in Philly, of course, and one in D.C. So, of course, you have this huge list of topics in front of you, but if you take a topic that's as multifaceted as program design, you might take into account when developing that session that you'll talk about evaluations. You may talk about student recruitment. You may talk about fundraising for that specific program and marketing that program. All of these topics might be touched on during that same session. For you to get a chance to see more in-depth examples of the sessions and sort of what they've entailed, I encourage you all to please take a look at last year's conference website, the 2014 conference website, so you can really dig in and see exactly what we've done and how it's been articulated to conference delegates. Let's move on to talk about the themes and the goals of this year's conference. Heather?
Great. Thanks, James.
Sure.
And again, as James said, you know, the conference is national. We'll talk about sort of how to frame your proposals for a national audience. Some of these topics are ones that have gained traction over past years. Some are ones that have really been surfacing in our conversations recently during the planning process. But they certainly is not meant to be an exhaustive list. These themes that you'll see here and the topics are really just meant to inspire you, and as we say, not to limit you. So we welcome all of your ideas. One of the things that has been surfacing in conversation with practitioners and thought leaders across the country is thinking about the ways in which we work and how to really create an environment that is more favorable to arts education. We recognize that, you know, that the work that we're all doing as organizations is really important, and certainly part of large part of the conference is coming to the conference and gaining skills and expertise and inspiration that will really strengthen your individual organization. But we also recognize that there's this great opportunity that exists when people come together at the conference from around the country, even internationally, and what can we do together during those 3 and 4 days together to really move the dial forward. One of the things that we've recognized is that there's great power in working together to really shift the environment in which we work to enable us to make arts education more equitable for all people. by working together, we can increase investment in our fields. We can engender greater public will for equitable access to arts education. And so we're thinking about some of the topics and threads that we've been kicking around are, one would be collective action. So how are we greater by working together both within the arts sector as well as developing strategic partnerships with stakeholders beyond the arts? So working with higher education and researchers, working with youth development and workforce development, with civic agencies. So how can we really multiply our impact, deepen our reach as a whole when we collaborate? And so we're interested in exploring that. We're also, sort of similarly, looking at ways in which we can tune our work so that it does respond to civic priorities. What are the ways that we can really demonstrate and communicate our impact to stakeholders that are making decisions within our communities? How do we position our work so that we can partner with public officials so that they can be advocates for our work? And then how do we together build knowledge of community arts education and its impact? As a network, how can we look at our own organizations, our programs as sites for research and knowledge development? How can, by coming together as a field and with other stakeholders, can we expand knowledge of community arts education? And then finally, leadership development. So we recognize that there's a great source of expertise and knowledge and experience within the field, and what are ways that we can really support emerging leaders within the field, as well as the further development of seasoned leaders in the field in ways that we can catalyze opportunities for community arts education and, again, start to shift the environment in which we work. So we see great opportunity in all of these things for really working together as a field to begin to leverage more financial resources, to build knowledge, and to really sort of advocate for some systemic change. Our overarching goal for all of this, of course, and the core of the Guild's mission is really helping to provide equitable access to arts education for all. We work with organizations that are providing arts learning opportunities throughout the lifespan. And so you'll have delegates there that are working with infants all the way to older adults, late in their lives, as well as active adults, teens, and tweens. We have organizations that are working in rural communities, in urban areas and suburban areas, and as James said, across disciplines. And the goal that we are focused on throughout this conference and throughout the Guild's work is this one. All right, James, let's get into how to propose a session.
Absolutely. So when thinking about proposing a session, I just want to reiterate, I said this at the top of the webinar, you do not have to be a Guild member. And you don't necessarily have to be part of the arts ed field. One thing that we strongly encourage are hearing from those who are not directly connected. So it may be one of your partners or somebody out there who's doing some really interesting work around the topic that may relate or directly connect or may not directly connect that you think is interesting that we all need to hear about. So just making sure that you don't have to be a member in order to apply. Applying is fairly easy. So all you're going to do is go to the Guild website, complete the online proposal form, click submit. There's a couple pages on there where you can upload supporting documents. Of course, if you're uploading some research, we'd like to have anything that's supporting that research to be shared so we can substantiate and move forward with that. And then the application deadline is April 30th. Of course, if you have any ideas, if you have any questions, feel free to contact Heather or myself, and we can kick around ideas and help you talk through the process of proposing an actual session. And now we get into the meat of the presentation. Heather, tell us how
Yeah,
to propose a session and what
yeah, great.
constitutes an effective proposal.
Absolutely. Thanks, James. Before we get into some of the advice that we can share about really drafting a really compelling proposal, just wanted to remind folks that if you do have questions, please go ahead and type them in that question box. All the lines are muted, but we want to make sure that we are able to get to your questions. If it's something that we can answer right away, we'll write you right back. If not, we'll address the broader questions at the end of the presentation. So we're going to go through this section on effective proposals, wrap up with a few other logistics, and then open up to your questions. So please do share those questions with us. So as James mentioned, this is a national conference, and so we are looking for topics that are relevant to a national audience. So as we mentioned, there are a range of organizational types that attend the conference. They're working in different communities, and working in multiple disciplines and with different student populations in terms of age and ethnicity, even student aptitudes. So really what is key to a successful proposal is for you to be able to identify what are the transferable principles of your program. So we recognize that many of you are doing exemplary work in your community. But if you are a theater program, for example, and you're working in a single discipline, well, how do you make your proposal transferable? So what we need you to do is to talk about it in a way that is relevant to other organizations. One of the ways to really do that is to think about the principles that are really undergirding your programming and what is transferable. So what are you doing within your discipline or within your program that someone in another discipline, even within a different organizational type, may be able to learn from and start to experiment with or even try out back home in their community or at their organization? So sessions that are particular to a particular curriculum or a discipline usually are not very highly rated by our review panel because they don't transfer across the variety of organizations and program types that are attending the conference. We also, and I should mention too that, going back to the roundtable, there certainly are plenty of opportunities for you to talk with other theater practitioners, et cetera, people through those roundtables and networking events. There are also opportunities to talk with folks in your own region. And so, but what we're talking about here are really the session proposals for panel presentations, workshops, lectures, et cetera. If you have an idea for a roundtable or even a next level luncheon, that is not part of this proposal process, and I would ask you to contact James directly, and we can kick around ideas on that. So what we're talking about is sort of the meat of the conference around these workshops and lectures and program showcases primarily. Okay, let's see. We are focusing on innovative and exemplary practices. The folks that attend this conference, we certainly have many young leaders who are coming to gain skills in marketing and fundraising and program development, but we also have many nationally recognized leaders in the field who attend the conference. And so the level of discourse at the conference is very high. And so what we're looking for you to show in your session proposal is what are you doing that is new, that is really working. And then we're asking you to not only tell us about that, but to show us, to really substantiate the impact and effectiveness that your program or your organization is experiencing. You'll have a paragraph or so within the proposal form to write your session description. So if your work has been recognized through an award, by a funder, even by your local arts agency or council, you'll want to include that information in that session description. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it is helpful to include mention of that so that the panel can see that your program has been recognized as high quality. You can also, as James said, there's a space within the session proposal form where you can attach up to 3 supporting documents. So if you have had an article published on your program or a report that really, or a piece of research that really signals substantiates the effectiveness of what you're doing, please go ahead and upload that. It's really helpful for us and to the panel. Also very important is to clearly describe the learning objectives of your session. So what will people take away that will strengthen their practice, that will help them design their programs better, will help them engage with their community in a new way? So what are you hoping that people will take away? What is going to strengthen their organization? What is going to strengthen their relationship to their community? What is going to benefit their community? And what are they going to take away from your session in that regard? It's really important that you clearly articulate this. There's not a separate section in the proposal form for this, so we are asking that you include this information in your session description. And there should be enough space for you to do that. Okay, let's keep going. A little bit about your presenters. So we are asking that there be, that you identify one session organizer for your session. This will be our primary contact as we work with you on your proposal. That person may or may not also be a presenter. So that person does not have to present, although it's certainly, that's a possibility. But what we're looking for in our presenters is someone with real content expertise, but we're also looking for someone who's an effective communicator and teacher. So we're looking for both of those aspects, and there'll be an opportunity for you to upload that person's bio, and certainly encourage you to use that bio as an opportunity to talk about past experience presenting or at other conferences. That's also very helpful. It's also really helpful if the presenters are able to see their work from a variety of perspectives, or see how work in your organization and community relates to similar work around the country. So if you have someone that can join your presentation that has that national vantage point, or even has a perspective from outside of the arts, we encourage that, and that really does strengthen your proposal. And we also don't want to hear from all people that think alike. We've heard back from delegates. One of the things they really appreciate is when they can hear from someone who is working outside of the arts or may have a position on a particular topic that isn't something we've heard many times before. We don't want these sessions to be sort of sales pitches about your program. What we're really trying to do is encourage healthy dialogue, even debate around issues, and having multiple points of view both within the arts field and from researchers, funders, other stakeholders that are allies in our work, or they're working in similar ways to us towards the same goals, is really helpful and very invigorating. And so we encourage you to invite multiple perspectives. Think about that when you're selecting your speakers. We also, I would say, see a real opportunity for your organizations in inviting your partners into those sessions and really identifying them as part of your session proposal. So for example, if you are working with, if you are proposing a session on partnerships between community arts education or your organization and a public school, you might want to think about inviting the school principal or a school superintendent, even a parent or a student into your session. those are some of the perspectives that could really shed some interesting lights on how that partnership works, what has made it a success, what some of the challenges might be. We also see a great opportunity for you in engaging your partners, because in the process of developing your session, it's really an opportunity for you to build your relationship with your partners and to start to talk about some of these ideas with them in a new and fresh way. So it's a chance to build those relationships. And it's also a chance for you to invite those folks into the dynamic learning community that is present at the conference. We found that bringing your partners to the conference and inviting them to be part of your presentations also gives them a better understanding of the field nationally and how your work and your organization intersects with that. And so we can't encourage that enough, and I think, again, it really lends itself to some really robust dialogue and even debate around key issues in the field. And then lastly, this one is a little bit self-explanatory, but really, as you're writing your session description, do avoid acronyms and jargon. While we have academics that present at the conference, this is not an academic conference per se. We have a lot of smart people that participate but are primarily practitioners, so they may not understand some of the kind of insider speak that often comes from out of a research community or even an advocacy perspective, and so just try to avoid that kind of jargon and acronyms when you're writing your session description. It'll help the review panel, who often won't know, what all of those acronyms mean. Let's go on, James. And I know I should say I apologize for all the text on these slides. We certainly don't encourage all of this in our presentations at the conference, but this is just a helpful outline for us to share with you in terms of what makes an effective proposal. And I know we're sharing a lot of information with you right now. We're going to pause in just a minute to get to some of your questions, so hang on. We want to recognize that no matter what format you choose to propose for the conference, that you will have experts in the audience choose. So we know that you have really great information to share, but there will be folks in your audience, in the room with you, that also have really unique perspectives and have been doing this work for a long time. And so we encourage you to design sessions that really harness the knowledge in the room. So a sort of general rule of thumb may be that maybe 1/3 of your presentation be presentational, be providing sort of information, and then about 2/3 really be focused on dialogue with folks that are participating in your session. So be sure to build ample time for dialogue in your session and to describe how you will engage the audience when you write your session description. Also, piggybacking on that, don't try to cover too much ground. We found that when sessions that are not as successful are sessions that are really trying to fit what could be a day-long institute, even a multi-day institute, into a 90-minute session. Success, we've found over years of doing this is, if delegates can come away from a session with 2, 3, 4 really great ideas that they can execute back home and some great inspiration to motivate them to continue the conversation back in their community and maybe a few contacts, that's success. And trying to cover too much can actually work against you. You'll see as you get into the proposal form that there are opportunities to propose sort of a 10-minute TED-style talk session, so as well as 75-minute, 90-minute sessions, and then up to 3-hour sessions, which we call sort of double sessions. So pick the format that you think will be best for what you have to cover, but really focus in, again, on what you want the learning objectives to be and narrowing down the focus to what you can achieve well in the time that you've allotted for yourself. Finally, we do ask you to describe effective handouts that you might be able to provide to delegates. We know that we're asking you to do this months in advance of our November conference. Some of you may be able to do this more easily than others if you've presented a workshop in the past, and you might have handouts that you can actually upload and provide for us right away, which is great, and certainly does help the review panel get a sense of what you're going to offer delegates. If you don't have those handouts already, we encourage you to just describe what you might be able to offer to support your session. So this might be a reading list, a compendium of resources, sample documents, or tools. Again, this is really helpful to the reviewers. So James, I'm going to pause here. Before we get into the review process itself, let's take a few questions that might have come up during that section there.
If there are any other questions. Heather, we had a question about a new methodology for teaching music. Is that something that would be effective? It's innovative, but is that something that we could share at this year's conference?
I have to know a little bit more about it. Again, we certainly have many delegates that do offer music instruction. Again, we're looking for, I think that's a particular, we'd have to really look again at the learning outcomes and what you're trying to achieve, and if that's a methodology that can be scaled and that would have national relevance.
Gotcha. And then one last question. Are handouts mandatory? Do conference attendees complain about receiving so much material?
James, I'm going to put that one back on you because I know you've handled handouts in the past and have worked with speakers on their handouts and posting those to the web. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, handouts aren't mandatory. Of course, people love to get paper, but what we also do is post-conference, we like to upload presentations and any handouts that you may have to the website so that people can choose to receive hard copy or download those digitally.
Great.
And another question that came in, Heather, are we interested in a short proposal that shares early research or findings that are both limited and longitudinal?
Sure. I think we have had, for example, actually one of our keynoters last year, Kevin Kirkpatrick, was presenting on research that his firm, the Metropolitan Group, has been doing on building public will for arts and arts education, and that research hasn't been completed. And so what he presented on was actually the framework for the research, the activities to date, and their early findings, and we've done a follow-up. We're actually about to publish a follow-up article on some of the further research and findings that they've discovered. So we encourage research. I think there'd have to be enough there to, to sort of build early knowledge and understanding of what you're trying to achieve and how it might be useful to others and to their work. But yes, we're open to that and certainly encourage research as part of this process.
Great. Thank you. I had a question just come in, and I'll go ahead and take this one, Heather. Can you work on the proposal online periodically, or is it designed to upload in one session? If the latter, is there a way to download the form and to work on it offline? Thank you so much for that question. And the way the proposal collector works right now, it is designed to be uploaded all in one session. But what we can do is right after this webinar, I will send around the slides to all those who are in attendance. And I'll also send a PDF of the actual instrument that we're using to collect proposals. Yes, you can submit multiple proposals as well. Thank you, Erica. Any more questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say, just to piggyback on, proposing multiple sessions, that's a question that comes up quite a bit. I would say go ahead. We don't want to, limit your creativity and ideas, but I would really make sure that your proposals are hitting the points that we just mentioned in terms of effective proposals and to present your best work. And so we'd rather have one really outstanding proposal from you than five loose proposals from you. So if you want to further kick around ideas or talk with James and I before you propose a session, we are happy to further brainstorm with you and help you kind of develop your ideas further. We don't limit the number of session proposals, but we do ask you to make sure that each proposal does meet the criteria that we've discussed.
Heather, just to piggyback off of you, we have a few questions that are coming in that are very specific, and what we'll do is connect with you right after the webinar via email and answer those questions.
Great. James, let's go. We'll certainly leave some time at the end for more questions, but let's go on and talk about the actual nuts and bolts of how to propose a session, and then again we'll get back to some additional questions towards the end of the hour together.
Sure. So on average, we get about 100 proposals every year. We accept about 3 or 4 that are perfect as they come in. And roughly about another 12 or so we accept provisionally. We'll spend several weeks working with the speakers and presenters to develop the idea further before we can accept it and sort of move forward. And then we also, if we receive a few proposals that are echoing some of the same topics, we'll connect people and have them work together. And of course the Guild will be there to help facilitate those conversations, but we'll have them work together to combine their proposal and put together something that's wonderful and fantastic that we can then share with a much broader audience. So let's talk about registration. We received a couple questions about this. So all presenters and panelists, we'd like to have them register by the regular registration deadline, which is September 24th. The proposal submission process deadline is the 30th of April. And then we'll let you know whether or not your session has been accepted by August 7th. So that gives you plenty of time to meet the early registration deadline and the regular registration deadline to get you registered for conference in time. And yes, presenters are eligible for registration discounts. What we've traditionally done is if you are registering for the full conference, we'll extend a discount of $150. And then if you're registering for just one day, we'll do a discount for $75. And then the registration fees may be waived, so sometimes we have presenters who come in and they're literally just coming in to present. And in that case, we're not going to charge you to present at the conference. We'll just waive your registration and have you come in for the day and do your session and leave. Of course, we would love for you to stick around, but if you do stick around, there's a small fee that's attached to that.
And I would add to that, we've had in the past organizations, certainly that are local or regional, who have invited students to be part of their sessions. So we haven't typically charged the students to participate in that session. And similarly for our student showcases, right. We certainly don't charge students to participate in the conference. And we encourage, we always hear back from delegates. We'd love to hear the perspective of young people or the perspective of older adults in your programs. And so if that is something that is feasible for you to do, to engage a student in your program as part of a panel or a session, that's always really interesting to our delegates, and it's a great perspective to share.
Absolutely. And just to build on that, we also offer student discounts. We always encourage young people, high school and college, to come out because they are the future of community arts education. So it's great to get them plugged in early on in their academic careers. So other opportunities for involvement with the conference, volunteers and work study opportunities. So I have to say that this conference would not be possible without our volunteers. As many as we can get, they are greatly appreciated. Some of those volunteer opportunities, so we have scribes or note takers that are in sessions. We'd like to have a volunteer in every session to hand out the session evaluation forms. We evaluate every session, so that's great feedback for the presenters as well as the guilt. So we'd like to know what really sticks and what has had the most impact in the community that is created during conference time. And then we'd like to know conference attendance for each session as well. We also have spots for ushers during the plenary sessions and the luncheons. There's registration desk opportunities. And then we'd like to have chaperones for our site visits. Volunteers for the conference. If you're a full conference volunteer, that means you're pretty much working just like the staff. You have the opportunity to choose what sessions that you'll be in. However, you have to work during those sessions. Those people who are doing this during the main conference, they will receive a conference discount. In some cases, we've been able to waive the conference registration fee completely. You will have to take care of lodging and airfare, but that's a great way to save. And then one other thing I want to remind you about before we open up for more questions is that other national service organizations and other organizations who may have a national scope in their work have used the conference as sort of a meeting place to meet with their members or other constituents. We had a few people who did this last year. We have 2 groups who do this every single year. But if you're interested in having a group meet at the conference that is offline, that is sort of a closed invitation, by all means, please contact me directly. The earlier the better, so that I can get a room, work with you if there's any fees attached. But this is something that we really encourage, all those convenings that are happening at the conference. Heather, I'm going to...
One question I just wanted to address, too, is we've had questions in the past of how many proposals do you receive and what is that process like? So we have received, we typically receive about 100 proposals. There are usually around 4 or 5 that we get that are just absolutely well designed. The learning objectives are clear. It's substantiated and it's ready to go. We can plug it into the program. We usually have about another 12 to 15 that, as James said, we sort of provisionally accept, and we'll sort of contact the speakers and work to develop the ideas further, and then usually can move towards accepting them. And so I just wanted to give that sense of how many we receive and sort of what that process is in terms of numbers as well, because that's often a question that is raised. And as James, as James mentioned, we do have other opportunities. The effective practices that we outlined today were really focused on workshops, program showcases, lectures, short format presentations. But if you do have an idea for a roundtable, an offline meeting, a networking event, please do contact James directly to talk about that type of format. So we have just a few more minutes left in our hour together today, and so we invite you to ask any additional questions if you have any, and we'll stay on the line to answer them. Again, if you have one, please just go ahead and type it in the question box. James, is there anything else that came up while we were chatting there?
There is not. If there are any other questions, please send them our way.
Great. A recording of this presentation will be made available on our website. So feel free to share it with others in your team or those that you know, colleagues within or beyond the arts that might be interested. Again, we encourage you to reach out to us to think more about what you might propose or to kick around ideas. The session proposal deadline, again, is April 30th, and you will be notified by August 7th as to whether or not your session is accepted. A question just came in around how many people attend the conference. Again, we expect over 600 delegates from across the country and internationally to participate from more than 350 organizations. The people that you can expect in the room at your session really varies. Some of our sessions can attract up to 80 to 100 people. Some are smaller, around 15 to 20. I'd say the average session usually has an audience of about 40 to 50 people in the room. So if that helps you in terms of thinking about what you want to propose and share with folks, I offer that you as well. Thank you all for spending the hour with us today. Thank you for your interest in the conference and in proposing a session, and we hope that you will share your ideas with us and certainly join us November 11th through 14th in Philadelphia. We look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.